Ocho sambo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zambe tse parache pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timuni Shasane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timuni Shasane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Omo a Guru Vajradhar Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kuda Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Yerme çıktı çingi lo makyuke kudan da gelo makyuke sundan da gina makyuke tukdan da geyi yerme çıktı çingi lo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Soha Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Danik Dagi Jinso Gibe Son Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchara Sangye Druparsho. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. In generale,
there are different possible approaches when
impariamo una pratica particolare.
A particular practice, a spiritual practice. In this case, it's called drup-tap, the method in order to realize. So, is an instrument, a tool to familiarize with those inner qualities to develop, and it exists an approach of starting to do the practice, starting to feel and learn, and going deeper into the practice more with our heart rather than our heads. This is one of the ways that it exists. Then there is another way where you can start getting into it with your mind, where you want to start learning, understanding, in order to then, after starting to practice. And then there is the middle way. We start practicing, and in the same time we start to try to understand. And I think this is the one that best adapts to us, because if we want to learn and understand everything before we start practicing, time will pass. And if we just try to feel in order to then understand, we live in a era, in a culture where we want to understand things, because things need to have a sense, make sense to us. But there is the risk to see the practice, the meditation practices, as something mystic, but not in a good sense. So like something that you cannot really understand. Usually Tantra practices are seen as something that is very far away, but actually is extremely logical. It's very coherent. And I personally like very much to understand the logic behind all of these. This is why I want to do have a middle way approach these days. So for one side we practice, and then we try to understand it, and we go both ways. When we teach, when we explain a practice, one of the first things that we need to understand is the context. So the context in which this method is. And in the Buddhist tradition, usually this is dictated by the name of the practice. I was reading this transcription of the commentary of self-healing that I gave in Holland many years ago, in 2015. And there is all the detailed explanation of the name, but we will not enter into this right now. Otherwise, we would stay here 3 days, which is also good, but now it's not the moment. So let's try to understand the context first. So first of all, the self-healing practice, tantric self-healing practice, NgalSo. Tantric means that it's part of one of the vehicles that Buddha's transmitted, Vajrayana. That is something that needs to be transmitted in an interrupted way. Tantra, the word, means continuum. So it's the concept of transmitting without interruption from master to disciple, from generation to generation. And the fact that it's part of the Vajrayana means it's part of Mahayana, which means that it's part of a spiritual path. So first of all, the starting point is it's a spiritual practice. What does it mean? That it's based on the paradigm that our happiness, our suffering depends mostly from our inner rather than outer conditions. So mundane practice is something that is based on the principle that happiness and suffering depend on external factors. So it doesn't matter which practice it is, if it's based on this principle that I call the material utopy, I can make very complex mantras or prana exercises, but if I do this in order to control my body, in order to have more concentration, to gain more money and be happier, then it's a mundane practice, not spiritual practice. What determines if it's a spiritual practice is not what it is done, but the reason why it is being done. So if I do million mantras with the intention of being the greatest mantra accumulator that I know, or we want to win the World Guinness of mantras, which is difficult, but if someone wants to try, it's not very useful. Of course, it's better than doing other things, but that's not the objective. If I want to learn by heart the practice in order to be the umze, or I want to have the spiritual
Qua detto così sembra quasi una barzelletta, ma in altri contesti è molto serio questo.
career, of course here now we're joking, but actually this is it really exists. The spiritual practice can become a means in order to nurture one's own ego. So having this spiritual career, and if you do this, it becomes a mundane practice, as many other things. I want to learn to meditate in order to be the great meditator. Of course, this doesn't work. If we want to nurture our ego with these things, of course, it's better rather than doing worse things. But it's not the main reason why we do this practice. So, first of all, it's a spiritual practice. So it means that it's based on the principle of developing our inner qualities and overcoming our defilements, mental defilements, starting from a basis that happiness and suffering depend majorly on our inside world, so how we approach life and not external factors. So this is a starting principle. So okay, it's part of Vajrayana. So at the basis there needs to be love towards ourselves, love towards others, Mahayana, this commitment to develop our qualities for others, other people's benefit, other sentient beings' benefit. And then Vajrayana means it's a practice that is part of this process to bring the result to the path, as we said this morning, and using the energy to transform, for example, aversion, ignorance. We will explain this in the next days a bit better.
E questo più o meno è il contesto nel
So
quale
this is the context in which, so why do we do the self-healing practice? Based on the context. So the tantric word is not in the context as of the tantra inside of the Hinduism that was transmitted in the West, but the meaning of the word is used in a different way. So it means that I want to go out of my suffering. I want to reach a state of spiritual development in order to help others, in order to get out of their own suffering. So this is the basis. So at the base, we need love towards ourselves, love towards others, and a coherent view of reality. These are the three main points as a basis. This is why, for example, if we see, in order to practice self-healing correctly, at the basis, we should study, comprehend, meditate on the three principal aspects of the path. Many of you already know these teachings, but the three principal points of the path are the basis for everything else to develop. So, as we said this morning, the mandala, what sustains the mandala and without which it would not be able to stay, what we need to overcome in order to get inside the mandala, and also what protects us once we are inside, are those three principal aspects of the path. So love towards ourselves, or definite emergence, love towards others, bodhicitta, that this determination in order to develop spiritually for others, and then the coherent view of reality, correct view of reality. So now it's not the time to get into much detail of these points. I like this aspect, to be honest, but if we wanted to really explain well the name of the practice, we would need many weeks, because Vajrayana, for example, the word Vajrayana, we need to understand what it means to have a spiritual path, what it means to be, what it means For Buddha, for example, to teach disciples through the Hinayana, Mahayana, what are the differences between the Sutta and the Tantra in order to understand what Vajrayana is.
Perciò l'autoguarigione è tanto.
So self-healing, tantric self-healing NgalSo. In Tibetan, Nelger means yoga, the practice of self-healing. Why practice? Because it's not something you do just once. It's not just something that you receive and that's it. It's something that it's an instrument, a tool of transformation that you need to use and repeat many times. So it's a practice. It's a yoga. It reminds me once I was in Varanasi and we met a yoga instructor, a practitioner, Indian guy, and at a certain point he brought us to see his center, his yoga center, and he showed us some practices and he asked us what did we practice, and we showed him the self-healing, and he was so happy. And he said, "Wait, but what you're making me look at, it's yoga. This is subtle yoga. It's the yoga of the channels, of the winds." And he was very impressed.
Nel nome della pratica
And in the name, in the this is the name in Tibetan, and Nelger is the Tibetan name word for yoga. But if we put in Italian yoga, already today, for example, it would be there would be some confusion because they would think, it's yoga because we use our hands in this way, we do these mudras, so it would be a bit, it would create some confusion. So this was not used. So why self-healing? First of all, because our path to enlightenment can't be done by someone else rather than us. So only we can actually walk this path and receive blessings and explanations, teachings, and but only we can destroy our own mental defilements. Like Buddha Shakyamuni said, I am my own protector, I am my own enemy. And self-healing, it's a gentle way for Lama Ganchen Rinpoche to say, well, it's actually all on you. I cannot do it for you. I would love to do that, but it's not possible. So calling it self-healing, it's saying we have to take care of our own selves. So inside the self-healing word, entering a bit more into detail, we ask what to heal and with what do we heal and from what. So, of course, we can only heal ourselves. Nobody else can do it for us. But what are we healing? Body and mind. And here, entering in detail, we have the explanation of gross, subtle, and most subtle body. There is the explanation of the anatomy of the body, of these three bodies, the winds, the channels, the drops. We have 72,000 channels, 5 primary winds, 5 secondary winds, 2 principal drops. But let's not enter into detail right now. I have to contain myself, because if I open this door, we enter, and maybe in the future, maybe in the next days, but not right now. Now it's a general view. So what are we healing? Body and mind on a gross level, subtle and very subtle level. From what are we healing? From our own blockages, energetical blockages, mental defilements, and actually self-healing. which in English actually has a better translation.
In tibetano, self-healing in realtà c'è anche un modo che si potrebbe, è guarire l'io.
It's like healing the I,
E questo in
the self.
fa riferimento che l'obiettivo della
So it means that the objective of the practice is healing the wrong view that we have of ourselves. So healing this unhealthy identity that we have of ourselves. So healing what? Eliminating our ignorance. That is this appearance of objective reality, seeing ourselves as if we were something completely separate and disconnected from everything else. So eliminating our egoism, developing altruism. So everything, all these concepts enter in this word self-healing. And then we have NgalSo. But wait, with what do we heal? What do we heal ourselves with? We have meditation, recitation, visualization, with the mantras, mudras, seed syllables, the gestures, so the mudras, with the blessings. There are different aspects that are those that we use in this method in order to heal our body and mind.
NgalSo.
Then NgalSo. What does NgalSo mean? It means that this method is in order to recognize our Ngal, our suffering, our tiredness, recognizing the causes also of our suffering, and so regenerate. So overcoming suffering, regenerating our qualities, reaching and following a path in order to reach a final state of peace. So inside the word NgalSo we have the Four Noble Truths: suffering, causes of suffering; Ngal, the state of nirvana, of cessation of suffering, called nirvana, so happiness in the So, and then the path in order to reach this nirvana. And also this is part of the So inside NgalSo. So in order to understand the context of the practice, we should enter in the details of the Four Noble Truths, understand what is a spiritual path, what are the characteristics of a spiritual path within Buddhism, understanding the difference between Hinayana, Mahayana, Sutra, and Tantra. We should understand a bit better what is our gross body, subtle and most subtle body, and the same with our mind. Understanding a bit better the methodology of healing that happens with the power of concentration, mantra power, mudras, of invoking the power of truth, and also to understand our mental defilements and ignorance. So once we understand this, we can have a general understanding within the context of the practice. In other words, it's not just a technique for relaxation, because it has another objective and it has another basis. So what I would like to see with you now is to see, let's see the macro topics of this practice. If we see the mandala from a distance, we can understand the different areas, and then we can start entering into details and entering into each of these parts. So the self-healing is divided into 3 parts initially. But actually any kind of sadhana we take, or practice, meditational practice we have in Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, is structured in the same way. So if someone really understands well self-healing, then this you can apply into other practices, for example, Vajrayogini, Tara, Medicine Buddha, or many others. So the first 3 divisions of the practice are preparation, the preliminaries, the effective practice, and conclusion. So sadhana is divided in preparation, the effective practice, and conclusion. Usually we are quite in a rush, so usually we would like to do the effective practice, not the preparation, right? It's like saying, I want to build the house, and people arrive in order to build the basis of the house, but we are like, no, but we want already the roof. But first, you need to do the basis of the house. If the basis of the house is not done well, once you start building, then maybe one store of the house will not work. So the preliminary practices are very important. They are not less important, but they are the solid basis upon which we build the rest. It's like saying if one part you do it correctly, then naturally you do the next step, and if you do it well, then you go to the next step, and so forth. So preliminary practice, the actual or effective practice, and conclusion. The preparation
in generale viene dividita in 6 parti.
In general is divided into 6 parts. We can enter into many details, but we will not do it right now. But let's say mainly the preliminaries we have. First, so the external preparation of the place, so choosing the place where to meditate. What is the place that I will go to meditate? Of course, if I have to choose a place to practice just one time, then the choice is less important. But if I have to choose where I will do my retreat, and so practicing 4 times a day for 3 years, then we see how important it is to choose the correct space. So, where do I choose to practice? If I practice at home, it would be best to have a place dedicated for our practice in our home. Because one of the things usually we complain about, one of the interferences for our spiritual practice is not having time or space. And in order to practice in our everyday life, we need to create space for the practice. And the space is of 2 types: the physical space and temporal space. For the physical space, imagine you arrive at home, someone lives alone, someone lives in company. I want to practice. Where will I go? I will go to my living room, in my room, maybe in the bathroom, but at least there I'm alone. There was a great master, Lama. It was said that he said one of the best places to meditate is the restroom, because they are clean and nobody can bother you. Nobody will ask you why you are there, please rush it. Even when you're at work, you can close yourself in the restroom, and of course then it depends on the restroom for the air, but anyways, what's important is for us to have a safe space. And one of the things happening is that if in our homes we don't have a specific place for our spiritual practice, what will happen is that we will not find the correct space, so we will be distracted from something else, and it will be more difficult to be present there. So we have 2 things that we can do here. Either we create a space for our practice, and this, of course, it depends on how big your house is. If you have the possibility of having one room dedicated for spiritual practice, then great. It's a place where I go in there, and I know that I go there in order to do just that. But majority of us don't have this possibility. So at this point, the second possibility is to take a portion of an existing room, and I put there a pillow, something for me to sit down on, putting the altar in front of me, and so I know that this angle of this room will be dedicated for that. So if also this is not possible, an alternative that works quite well is to take
quadrato, tipo questo su quale io sono seduto.
A fabric, a piece of fabric, like
si può fare un tessuto di qualunque colore in realtà.
we can take a fabric, a squared fabric of whatever color that we can put before we meditate. And so that you know, okay, when I'm sitting on here, it's just for spiritual practice, not for anything else. I will not sit there watching TikTok or calling someone. No, when I am there, what I do, you see, it's like this. For example, this is the traditional one used for the lamas in the monasteries. And we have this piece of fabric.
Giallo, si può fare di vari colori.
Of course, you can make it different colors. If we want to enter another symbology, of course we could, but let's start from having something to sit on. It can be a pillow, it can be a piece of fabric, squared piece of fabric, and when someone has finished, then we close it and we put it in a special place, and then when you have a new moment for the practice, you take it out again. So in this way we create the sacred time and space in order for the practice to happen. And then we have the cleaning. So usually we clean first the space. It is said that also in Tibet, one of the greatest masters, of course Dalai Lama, the king of Tibet, he also used to have this broom with a yellow piece of fabric for him to recognize it, so it was just his broom, and he would clean his room before practicing. And it's not just because the room is dirty, it's not this, but it's in order for us to create conditions in our mind, to predispose our mind for the practice in order to create some respect. So ideally, cleaning the space, then we place our pillows for sitting down. Then we have the preparation of the altar, where we put the representation of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, body, speech, and mind. So we can put a statue or an image of our guru or of the Buddha. We can put a sacred text, an object that represents the enlightened mind. Could be the dorje and bell or a small stupa. And the altar is very personal, actually. So slowly it will grow, of course, as our spiritual path grows. I also saw people putting their own picture on their altar. But for me, it makes no sense because we want to transcend ourselves. But okay, maybe it's also a way for us to get some blessings from our gurus. But for example, Lama Yeshe used to have an altar, it is said, that allegedly only had a mirror and airplane. The mirror because it's the symbol of the emptiness, so the correct view of reality, and the airplanes represented what allowed him to travel around the world to spread the Dharma. So the altar is something with which we create a relationship. It's not just there. In some Hindu cultures, there is this culture of changing the clothes of the statues. So we have the clothes for the statue in winter, in summer, to sleep. So it creates this kind of relationship. There is this relationship, so we have
davanti all'altare prepariamo le offerte, possiamo mettere le
the commitment being that puts us into contact with the wisdom being, so we have to create this relationship. So then we put our offerings on the altar, water, incense, light offering, flowers. Then we sit. We have the correct posture in which to sit. So preparation of the place, preparation of the body, preparation of the mind. This is the first part of the preliminaries. Preparing the body means having the correct posture, and preparing the mind, it means to generate a neutral mind that is not taken by jealousy, distraction, anger, so bringing our presence in the present moment. And this is where the breathing techniques come into place. But now we will not enter too much into details. We will just give the titles in order to understand in general what we have. So preparation of the place, of the body, of the mind. The body is a correct posture. And then also for the mind, a correct, let's say, posture of the mind. So correct attitude. And once we've done this, we start with generating the correct motivation. So we induce ourselves in a sentiment of love towards ourselves, towards others. And these are the first two sensations that we have to generate. And they are represented by the barriers of the Vajra. So first, we put the spiritual intention where I love myself in the sense that I want to get out of the suffering cycle, not by running away, but by developing inner qualities. And then I desire that every being does the same. And here we have the refuge, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. Then maybe by tomorrow, please, I ask you to buy this self-healing practice so that I can help you mark all the different passages of the sadhana, so we can say, okay, here we are generating love towards ourselves, here love towards others. So what's the meaning for each step of the practice? And also, every part of the practice has 3 levels, which is how to recite, what to visualize, and the state of conscience that we have to generate. Generating love towards ourselves. If I recite taking refuge, I visualize Guru Buddha in front of me with ray of lights and nectar that are coming to my 5 chakras. I generate this state of conscience, of determination, of wanting to abandon suffering and causes of suffering in order to reach happiness and cultivating love for myself and for others. Then after we did this, we conclude with the generation of the motivation. So love towards ourselves, love towards others, generating the motivation for the practice. In other words, I generate love towards myself, others, and then we say, and for this reason, I want to do the self-healing practice. After this, there is the preparation of the visualized place, because self-healing, as all other sadhanas in Vajrayana Buddhism, is a path based on imagination, if we can say. So we imagine a whole new world, and we disconnect from what we have here. We have this inner experience in order to come back from where we started, but changed, transformed. So first there is this creation of this space, which is called purification of the place, generation of offers, and there is the part in the preliminary where we ask for the blessings. So summarizing: preparation of the place, preparation of the body, preparation of the mind. That includes generating motivation, love towards ourselves, others, and then requesting the blessings. In order to request blessings, we prepare the place, we prepare the offerings, we invite the wisdom beings to come to this place, so we visualize Guru Buddha, the commitment being, we invite the wisdom beings, they become inseparable, and then we do what is called the 7 limbs practice, that are based on accumulating positive energy, purifying negative karmic forces, and then receiving the blessings. So,
preparazione esterna del luogo,
preparation, external preparation of the body, external preparation of the place, preparation of the body, of the mind, generating the motivation, love towards myself and others. In order to request the blessings, we need to invite Guru Buddha, invite the sacred beings, so create this connection. So we prepare the place, we prepare the offerings, we visualize the merit field, we visualize Guru Buddha, we invite the wisdom beings, and then we do the 7 limbs prayer, which is recognizing Buddhas, making offerings, purifying negative actions, rejoicing for positive actions, asking to Guru Buddha to share with us the Dharma, asking him to stay with us until the end of samsara, and we dedicate to all sentient beings. And then we request the blessings, and once we received the blessings, we conclude what are called the preliminary practices. So the first part of the 3 distinctive parts we divide self-healing with. So let's recap: preparing the place, preparing the body, preparing the mind, loving ourselves, loving others, connecting with Guru Buddha, with the sacred. So for this we purify the place, generate the offerings, invite the Guru Buddha, and practicing the 7 limb prayer. And after this we ask for the blessings and we receive the blessings. Is it okay? Is it clear? More or less? So what is the function of the preliminary practices? Prepare ourselves for what we are about to do. It's like saying we are about to go on a trip, so we need to prepare for that. So I need to prepare physically, otherwise it happens like last year we had to go to the Kailash. We were like 50 people in order to go around the Kailash, and I am sure that maybe only 5 people really committed to train for that. But in the end, we were not able to go to this trip, and so I was actually kind of relieved, because actually it would have been quite difficult for us to do this trip, because you need a lot of training, and it was basically all based only on trust and faith in myself, in the Lama. But I was kind of relieved because it's quite difficult. And then we arrived to another mountain. When we arrived there were no external conditions in order to climb this mountain, and so I thought to myself, maybe we were not prepared in order to do this. Otherwise, it's better not to do it. So the preparation, why? Because there is something important, and I'm creating the basis in order to do it well. And what we do here is we bring our presence in the present moment, we generate the clarity of why am I here doing the practice? What is it that I want? Love towards myself, love towards others. I connect with the lineage. I connect with the sacred beings, asking for blessings as a condition in order to help me to effectively do the practice. This part of the preliminary practices was explained many times in different contexts by me, so I'm containing myself not to explain it once more because I really like it a lot, but otherwise we would stay only this week on the preliminary practices, which is nothing wrong, but so we will just give an overview and then we will see more details. So preparation, preliminary practices, effective practice or actual practice, which is divided into two parts. We have the generation stage and the completion stage or realization stage. In Tibetan, Kierim and Tsokrim. An important thing,
magari per qualcuno non vuol dire molto.
Maybe to some of you it will not mean anything, but in the Vajrayana Buddhism, in the sadhanas, we have three principal kinds of practices. One has the objective to request just the blessings, where we have we have a frontal generation of the wisdom being, of the sacred being. For example, the practice of 4 mandalas of Tara that we do here once a month. We do a frontal generation where we invite Aryatara, we ask her the blessings. Then the majority of sadhanas, we have the sadhanas of self-generation, and then we have the self-initiation practices. Self-healing practice is a self-initiation practice, and we will understand later on what it means. And for this reason, the practice is divided by generation and completion stage.
Cosa vuol dire?
What does this mean? The generation stage is where
a svincolarci dalla nostra identità ordinaria.
We take out our ordinary appearance, identity, and gradually generate a pure identity, connecting with our own qualities, allowing to these qualities to grow and evolve, and identifying in this in order to generate
cambiare la nostra identità veramente. In altre parole,
in order to change our identity. As we said this morning, in order for me to familiarize with love, I need to enter in contact with it. And the first part of the generation stage is dying, is where I say, okay, this body, this name, this identity, goodbye. It's a metaphorical death, of course. But until we grasp to this identity, ordinary identity, I'm like this and I'm like that, it will be very difficult for us to bring the result to the path. Because in order for me to generate myself in a pure way, I cannot be me seeing myself as a Buddha. Otherwise, it's like a carnival. I put on the clothes of Tara and I become like Tara. No, I am Tara. I am Vajrasattva. I am the Buddha. I need to generate this identity. And we need to start letting go our ordinary identity. And one of the most beautiful parts of the practice is we start the generation stage with a meditation on
simulazione
on the simulation of the dying process. We simulate this dying process. And it's not by seeing us in hospital or whatever. No, it's the inner process of death that we simulate. And slowly, slowly, we lose connection to the external world in order to generate a different identity. Then we will enter in more details for this. So here we have the generation stage that is divided into the 3 transformations. And to be more specific, in the self-healing, the generation stage is divided into 2 parts. Self-generation with the 3 transformation and generation of the body mandala. This is the division that we have. So first we have the 3 transformations, so transforming death in Dharmakaya, transforming the bardo in Sambhogakaya, and rebirth in Nirmanakaya. And what does it mean? It means transforming the process, the dying process, in a state of a subtle state of body, of mind, in a pure way. Because in the moment of death, what remains is the body and mind that is very subtle. So we have access to this through the process of death, and we transform it. And from this body and mind, very subtle body and mind, in a pure state, one regenerates himself or herself in a subtle and then gross level in a pure way. And here what we do is to simulate the death, bardo, and rebirth process. Then we will enter into more detail. It seems very complex seen like this, but actually it's not. First of all, we need to let go of ourselves in order to take ourselves in a new way. So 3 transformations, transforming death in the Dharmakaya, the body of essence, transforming the bardo, the subtle body, in a pure way, and rebirth, generating a gross body in a pure state. So after all of this, actually, Lama Rinpoche gave more emphasis on the body mandala. So all this part, we have it. If we take the book of the self-healing, it's all described and everything. But when we do the practice, it's only done in the meditation process without the recitation. So when someone asks, but where is this actually in the practice? It's after Om Sobawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddham. From here until Pamlepe Majanku, so in this in between, there is this part. When we do the practice, usually we do Eyam Ramlambam Ho Shuddha Shuddha Soha, Om Sobawa Shuddha Sawadama Sobawa Shuddham, Pamlepe Majangu, Pamlepe Maserpo, etc. But if we did with more tranquility between one and the other, there is a lot we should do there. I want to put more emphasis on this part in these days. As I said this morning, I want to explain what is not written, because we can all read what is written. So we do these 3 transformations, we generate a pure identity, and then there is the generation of the body mandala. And this is divided into 5 parts. That is called...
Che tutti gli stadi di generazione sono divisi in queste 5 parti. Che Teshin le Chanchopa, Pema le Chanchopa, Saben le Chanchopa, Chanzen le Chanchopa, Kuyon su Zoppa le Chanchopa. Che vuol dire...
So it means, it's a bit difficult to translate. It's like to realize in an excellent way the emptiness, the lotus flower, the seed syllables, the symbols, and the complete body of the Buddha. So, in the self-healing practice, what we do, from the emptiness, we have the lotus flower upon which we have the seed syllable, from the seed syllable, the symbol, from the symbol, the Buddha. And this is the part of the generation stage, where we that is also the place where we train our mind to be concentrated. Because in this way, if we try to generate more profound concentration stages, it will be very difficult. But here we are very occupied with different colors and forms and sounds and details. And if we do this with a lot of attention, then slowly, slowly, we can train in our concentration very deeply. So one of the functions of our of this generation stage is to train to concentration, generating this state of concentration beyond other than, and of course, then also generating a state of bliss and happiness and joy. And of course also developing a correct view of reality, or at least getting more into touch. Of course, we are saying many things right now. To some may seem a lot, to some nothing, but it's just to give a general overview. So in the generation stage, what we do is we take out our ordinary identity, we visualize ourselves in a pure state, we generate the body mandala, that is generating the 5 Buddhas in our 5 chakras. Okay? This is maybe a bit simpler. Then we will see why and every step, what it means. It's much easier than it seems, actually. Then we have the completion stage that is divided into 4 parts, that takes the name of the 4 initiations. So the secret initiation, wisdom initiation, word initiation,
iniziazione del vaso,
initiation of the vase, secret, wisdom, and word. Vase, secret, wisdom, and word. These are the 4 initiations, and then we will understand what they mean. But in a few words, so in the generation stage, we overcome our ordinary identity, and slowly, slowly we build an identity. It's like the blockages that we build for a more pure identity, which are the 5 aggregates of body and mind. In the vase initiation, I identify myself in each of these 5 Buddhas. I identify in these qualities at their maximum capacity in order to generate an inner sensation of bliss and love and compassion, where I identify in a profound way with wisdom, stability, love, compassion, generosity, concentration, with the power of realization, etc., with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And then I bring this state, inner state, this identity, from a gross level to a subtle and more subtle level of consciousness, with what is called the secret initiation of wisdom and of the word. Trying to put it in simple words is bringing this pure state that we generated and bringing it from a gross level of consciousness until the subtle and most subtle level, in order to familiarize with those aspects not only at a conceptual level but on a more deeper level. And once we finish this, we arrive to the conclusion of the practice, that is when someone comes back to the starting point. So I am here, but I come back here with a commitment of being of support to all sentient beings, and I come back transformed. So what do we have in the self-healing practice? I prepare myself, prepare the place, the body, the mind, generate love, I connect with the wisdom beings, I ask the blessings and receive the blessings. Then I take away my ordinary identity, simulating process of death and rebirth. I generate myself with a body and mind in a state, in a pure state, and I generate my qualities gradually, bringing them to their maximum potential. I identify myself in this state with these qualities, and I bring this identity from a gross level to a subtle and more subtle level, in order to help me to familiarize with in a profound level with this. And once I've done this, I come back where I was before. So I'm here, we are here, we talk, but transformed. So this, in a very few words, is the practice. So what it is the function? To familiarize ourselves with our qualities, bringing the result in the path. So I simulate the process of becoming a Buddha. I simulate the process where I develop each quality to the maximum potential, and I identify myself in this state, and I bring this to a deeper level, for then in order to come back with this level to our ordinary reality. Is it clear, more or less? Of course, the details of each of these things, there's a whole world to enter. But we need to have a general view. Because otherwise we say, self-healing practice. But what is it? Yes, you sing the mantras, you do the mudras. But what are we really trying to do? Okay? I repeat once again. What do we do with the self-healing practice? We get out from the ordinary, generating correct motivation, bringing this action to a spiritual path. We request the blessings, then we take away our ordinary identity, we generate a pure state, we simulate to becoming a Buddha, which is not a simulation that is being done. This is me, Lama Michel, and I see myself, Lama Michel, as a Buddha. No, I need to be a Buddha. I need to imagine as if I really were a Buddha, and I need to abandon my ordinary appearance. And the more I can do this, and the ordinary appearance, we mean the me, the self that is tired, that is angry, that has this kind of problem, that other kind of problem. We need to let go of all of this. And it's strange to say, but it's not so easy. There is a sort of attachment to suffering, to our problems, that is not so obvious. So there is a place in the practice. As I said, next days we will enter into more detail, but in the beginning of the practice we allow ourselves to let go of all of this. Okay, I don't need to grasp to this, so I allow myself to go beyond this. I exist in a state that transcends this body and this state in which I find myself today. There is something deeper. And there is a tool for this, and is simulating our death. Because the day we will die of the problems that we have now, what will be left? Try to imagine, put in front of you all of the problems you have. And then you imagine, okay, I'm dying. The second after our death. Which problems are our problems after our death? Basically nothing. So let's allow ourselves to simulate death. This creates a huge space, inner space. And from this space, we can go and see that there is something within us that continues after death. And this is what we transform. This is what we generate. That is called our body, speech, and mind, a very subtle body, speech, and mind. But it's something that transcends death, that then needs to be generated in a pure state. So I generate this identity, I connect with the various characteristics and qualities that I develop of body and mind. These qualities slowly they develop, they grow, and I imagine myself with my qualities at their maximum potential, and then I take this state of conscious, and I bring it from a gross level to a more subtle level. And this part of bringing this from a gross to a more subtle level, it's also a training for the process of death, but it's actually a secondary function. So, since our being can only be transformed by process of familiarization, we can change only through interaction and repetition and familiarization with something. So our objective with the practice is not to point towards our mental definements, saying, how bad it is, this jealousy and anger and this and that, because we already know this, and actually to point to the to point the wound is not the solution, because the practice is based on interacting with qualities, so familiarizing with the qualities, so allowing ourselves through this tool to induce ourselves to this state of entering more in contact with these qualities of patience, of love, etc., that are represented by the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. These images, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas and the 5 Great Mothers, they represent our own qualities to the maximum potential. In a few words, this is what the 5 Dhyani Buddhas are. And one of the things that we will try to do these days, that is part of the practice, is to nurture the 5 Dhyani Buddhas with meaning, to fill it up with meaning, starting from the colors. Is this the explanation I give to children when they come to the temple? If we enter in the temple and we look up. So let's start from the colors, for example. For example, green. What does green color mean? We have negative aspects that we want to leave and the good qualities that we want to develop. So, for example, the fear, uncertainty, envy, jealousy that we want to let go of. And then on the other side, we have power of realization, certainty in every action, rejoicing, happiness for other people's happiness. So green means overcoming the mental defilements by increasing and developing our correspondent qualities. Then we have yellow. If we follow the body mandala, the yellow represents overcoming arrogance, the sense of superiority, developing humility, which means not comparing ourselves to others in order to see ourselves. So humility in the sense of not comparing ourselves with others, because if you feel superior to someone, you will also feel that you're...
Poi andiamo al blu, che qua al centro, al cuore.
Then we have blue, means overcoming anger, aggression, depression, sadness, by developing love, compassion, stability, patience, joy. Then the red means overcoming attachment and satisfaction, distraction, the mind that does never stop, by developing satisfaction, concentration, correct discernment. With the white, we have overcoming ignorance and developing a coherent view of reality, creating more inner space. If we only start from this, and now we see the colors here in the Gompa, we can do like a friend that he bought t-shirts with the 5 different colors, and one day that maybe he felt he was a bit frustrated, he would put a blue t-shirt in order to develop patience. Or one day he woke up and he felt a bit arrogant, and so he would put a yellow t-shirt. But so now we can start to nurture and to fill these colors with meaning. And it already means something, because when we give to the green color, we give the meaning of bravery and as an antidote of envy and jealousy, etc. Then after this, just by entering in contact with this color, it will bring us there much quicker than by giving the explanation of it. And then, of course, there is much more to the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and the colors now we just said a small part. For example, there is a part of our way of interacting with the world and how a sacred being can interact with the world. For example, starting with the white, the first approach is the approach of pacifying, is our ability of pacifying conflicts, both inner and outer conflicts. If we think at the external, someone that realizes the pacifying power, it means that if you realize this, only by your presence you pacify a conflict. It's not obvious, but this is the power of pacifying. And sometimes we can live this. For example, when there is someone that is nervous and someone else arrives that is stable, and he's or she's able to stabilize this. But sometimes pacification is not enough. So we need to go to the yellow. Yellow is power of increase. So is increasing something positive in order to create that space that allows to pacify. For example, there is someone with which we have a conflict or a tension. There is no space to pacify. So we eat something good together and you relax. And from this, we have more space in order to pacify. We increment, is this power of increasing. But even increasing power sometimes doesn't work. I mean, in the sense that it's not enough. So it means that we have to go to the next step, which is the power of seduction, of influence, with the red color. Which means, look, if you do this, this will happen. If you don't do it, this other will happen. So it's the power of, is a magnetizing power, it's seducing power, in order to influence positively ourselves or others. When also this is not enough, we go to the green. We have power of opposition, where we use a force that is as strong as the negative one in order to oppose to that negative starting force. If someone is running towards
facciamo il home insieme.
Running towards a cliff, for example, of course, to go there and say, come on, please, don't do this, of course, this will not work. Or if we say, I'm going to offer you a dinner or something, it will not work. Or if we say, but look, if you don't go towards the cliff, I will help you with this or that, I'm trying to influence, but it will not work. So at that point, I need to run myself and physically stop the person from jumping. So I need to use this force as the negative force that is being used in order to be able to oppose that force. In general, in order to use the opposing force, you need to have realized the other powers. So in order to use the opposition power, you need to have realized the power, the influence power, then the the increased power, and the pacifying power. And then we have a power that has in itself all the other powers. So white pacifying, yellow increasing, red seducing, green opposition, blue is the unifying of all these previous actions and powers. So these are other explanations that we can give to the colors, and it helps us to understand better this mandala. And one of the things that we should do is to give more and more meaning to these symbols, and only by doing this they will have a direct impact with us. And all of this is part of the generation stage. So familiarizing with these symbols and creating this familiarity and relation. In this part there is also the accumulation of the mantra. So once we have done all of this, we can generate this identity, this new identity with these qualities, and then bring this from a more conceptual to a less conceptual level. So this is the objective of the practice in a more general way. And for me is magnificent, because when we study the philosophy, of course, to understand that anger is not good, it's easy. To understand how patience is important or generosity is important, this and that, of course, this is easy to understand. But the question that comes is, how do I do that? And the only tool that we have is the fact that we are interdependent beings. In other words, our mind exists, our body, mind, our being exists as a relational being that transforms based on the interactions. This is what it is. Today I was reading the Lama Ganchen Rinpoche's book on self-healing, and there was a moment in the introduction where he talks about our pure nature, Buddhic nature. And when we look at what it is, have you ever heard of this Buddha nature, of this pure nature? Some say we all have pure nature and Buddha nature, but we are all Buddhas, but we don't know that we are. And every time I hear this, I'm like, then we would be extremely ignorant Buddhas, and this is not possible. So it's not that we are Buddhas and we don't know it, it's that we have the same nature as a Buddha. And this is what allows us to become Buddhas. When we talk about pure nature, the word pure comes from Shuddha, which means clean. Clean means clean from dirt, but we need to understand what we mean by dirt. So our nature is we are free from an autonomous, independent, and objective reality. We do not exist as beings with sufferings and fears and aggressivity, egoism, etc., and all that we are. Let's take a picture of ourselves, let's say, with the good and bad parts. We are not what we are in an autonomous, independent way. We can be a person with a lot of ego in an interdependent way, in the sense that it's all based on the relationships that I have. So all the relations and interdependence that I live make me an egoistic person. But if I have a different attitude and I start interacting in a different way, is it possible to transform? It is possible to transform from egoism to altruism. because we are beings that are constantly in transformation based on interactions and interdependence. So the only tool that we have in order to transform is interaction. But if I think about love, then I interact in a specific way, and I transform in this way. If I do self-healing practice and I live it, both in meditation and outside of the meditation, which I did not explain earlier, but actually this practice before the preliminary practices, actually there is another distinction, that is how to practice during meditation sessions and how to practice between the meditation sessions. So it means how to practice when we're eating, when we are talking, when we are sleeping, how to follow the path even when we are not inside the formal practice. And the actual objective is to practice 24 hours out of 24 hours. What does it mean? It means to familiarize with what I want to become. So bringing the result into the path 24 hours on 24 hours, when I'm talking, walking, eating, working, in every moment, familiarizing with love, altruism, wisdom, etc., etc. Okay? So if we really do it well, we can do a lot, really a lot, in a short amount of time.
Questo è già un punto troppo avanzato per dirlo adesso.
This is already an advanced point to say it now, but the practice starts when one is waking up. And in the most advanced level, you practice also when you're sleeping, where you apply the 3 transformations in the process of sleep, in order to follow the practice while we are dead. That is the best opportunity for us to reach enlightenment. But okay, we will explain it in these days. But what happens is that when we see the system, it's not about practicing once in a while. If we see it in an integrated way, this is a huge tool of transformation. Because we enter into contact in an extremely profound way with what we want to become. As we said it many times, everywhere we have interaction, there is transformation, and transformation is coherent with the interaction.
Qualcuno direbbe, questo vuol dire quanto tempo è? Sono 3 settimane.
So someone could ask me, okay, how long is this process? It's a process of lives. There are some texts that says that if these practices are done in an excellent way, we can reach enlightenment in 3 years.
Anche 12, che è già comunque.
Also 12 in some texts, which is already great, but this means practicing day and night without ever stopping in an excellent way. And when I studied this, how this works, I really saw that it was really possible. But it means really dedicating ourselves full time to that. Usually the problem we have is we do our practice, we try to familiarize a bit with love. Then between one thing and another, we do 1,000 other things, and we go back to our old habits, and we familiarize with the opposite things. So we familiarize a bit in one direction, then in the other, and so everything becomes slower, of course. But in the practice, the more we are able to integrate in our life, the more powerful it becomes. And but also practicing even once in a while, it still has a transformation power, because every time we have interaction, we have a transformation. So we can really do a lot. So we have preliminary practices, we have the actual practice with the generation and the completion stage, that are the 4 initiations that we will explain, the 4 initiations in the next days. And then we have the conclusion. And the beautiful thing is that we start the practice by being here, where we are right now. Then we connect with our motivation, we bring our attention inside of us, and then it's like going for a trip, and we disconnect from this body, name, and we generate a positive identity, and we identify with our quality to their maximum potential, and taking this awareness from a gross to a most subtle level body to then come back. This is what we do. Okay?
Io sono molto contento che possiamo approfondire un po' questi giorni la pratica.
I'm very happy that we will be able to go into deep in this practice in these days. I received a lot in my life, but this is one of the most precious things I received from Lama Rinpoche. I'm convinced that with all the great gifts that Lama Rinpoche left us, the most important, I think, is self-healing practice. So it's something for me that is so special, so it's so nice to have some days in order to practice together and go into deep with explanation. As I said this morning, for these next days, I did not create, let's say,
Voglio in qualche modo aiutare ad accompagnarvi in questo percorso, portando anche quello che non c'è scritto. Okay?
A set list of what I want to talk about, but I want to explain to you what is not written in the texts. So this is what is most precious. So now we will dedicate, tomorrow we will start again with a yoga practice in the morning, early in the morning. I invite you in these next days, most of all, to try and avoid the informations that are unnecessary. So the news, are they useful? I read. Are they not useful? I don't read. I need to speak with this friend. Is it useful? Okay, I do. Is it not useful? So then I don't. What do I need to speak about? About something that I need or no? Of course, I'm not saying you need to take a commitment of silence commitment, because already with the phone is not even possible. But the principal commitment is not to not talk, but not to say what is not what is not necessary. And this is already a lot. Okay? So let's do our dedications.
Lame kutse rapten chin namkar chinle chokchur ge pada losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela takto ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chingelo kuncho sumki ngodrub tsol, kuncho sumki trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i 3 gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the 3 jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and spring all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Una piccola pausa pubblicitaria. No, volevo veramente ringraziare tanto la Irene, che ha dedicato tanta energia, tanto tempo per fare questa trascrizione, correggerla, ripassare, eccetera. Questa è una trascrizione nella era pre-intelligenza artificiale, quindi dove c'è un lavoro non indifferente per
I wanted
trascrivere.
to thank Irene for this book of transcriptions of the self-healing commentary. And
Autoguarigione molto
it's
completo.
a very complete commentary of self-healing. It's a transcription of teachings I did in Holland in May 2015 for days. And I was reading it earlier, and it's really complete. So it's available at the shop in the English language.
Irene for the great job. And the commentary is there for anybody that would like to go deeper. And also it's something that you don't need to read all at once. It's something that you go there as reference. Ok? Thank you very much. Grazie a tutti. E ci vediamo domani.